This episode of the Flush Podcast is brought to you by our partners in the field, Federal Premium Ammunition, Benelli Shotguns, and Carlson's Choke Tubes. Altogether, they provide a shotgunning combination that we trust on every bird hunt. Welcome to another episode of the Flush Podcast. I'm Travis Frank. I'm your host today, and to my right, Brandon Morton, our producer. Straight across is the big kahuna, the man that writes my checks. So I have to be very careful with the questions I ask today.
And they're big checks.
Yeah, they're big checks. Scott Fransen, welcome to the Flush Podcast. This is a dream come true for you. This is something you've been excited about launching for quite a while now, and it's actually here. Is it what you envision having me sitting on this side and you on that side?
Well, I don't know, Trev. Well, first, thank you for letting me participate in the podcast. I guess you kind of had to.
Yeah, I don't have a choice here.
We're excited about this. We think it's a really cool extension of our Flush brand. And we get to visually tell stories and have some time limits that we have in producing the television product. And this lets us get a little bit deeper into some of the things we gather in the field and maybe get out of our lane a little bit and talk a little bit more about hunting dogs in more depth or life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the people that we meet are what really stand out to me. Two things when I'm on the road: the people I meet and the places. I mean, just to experience a lot of them. And I really never forget the people. There's great people in this industry, and their stories. And like you said, we get when you break down a full half-hour television show, you're looking at like 21 minutes of actual time that we get to tell the story. And so for years, we're like, oh, there was so much more there. There was this guy. I mean, I wish I could have talked to that. So this really does give us that avenue to go deeper into conversation. And I think people that listen to this will probably relate to other hunters because they have their own stories to tell too.
Hopefully. Yeah, and 100%. Yeah. It's kind of like the hunting group in general. You meet a lot of people in the field, even when we're not filming, and you're just out on hunting with your buddies. You meet a lot of people and have a connection that might be the dogs, where you're hunting, what you're hunting, that sort of thing. And oftentimes you aren't able to get the complete story out there, and to be able to tell it via podcast, it's going to be kind of fun.
Yeah. And I would even say, radio, just a standard radio. I believe the reason why podcasting has exploded today in this media world that we live in is because we're not forced to break away for a commercial break at any point. We can just keep talking and you can really learn about somebody. So as long as we've got you, why don't we learn a little bit about you? So
well, that'll take a minute or two.
Yeah, we've got about 30 seconds here. We'll wrap this up. No, so you're a businessman. You've been in the media world pretty much your whole life, right?
Correct. Yeah, I started in radio out of college and spent 14 years in radio. Maybe that's why I have an affinity towards this podcast entity. And then went into business for myself in a different field, but I've always been kind of in the media, marketing, advertising spectrum of the business community, and have been lucky enough to be with Ron Share Productions now for 10 years.
Yeah, you bought the company about 10 years ago.
I did.
A lot of people don't know that. They still think Ron owns the company because
okay.
It's the name. Yeah, we can let it be that way. He likes to strut around with that title.
It gets him better parking spots, and I'm okay with that.
Well, why in the world did you buy an outdoor television company?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story, I think, at least. I was at a Pheasants Forever banquet, a member of Pheasants Forever, proud member of Pheasants Forever, and I happened to sit at a table right next to Bill Shirk. Never met Bill, but we started talking. We started talking bird hunting, fishing, fly fishing. Bill's a big fly fisherman. I love to fly fish. And he had donated a fly fishing trip on the Mississippi River for smallmouth bass. And I bid on the trip. I ended up winning it. I kind of forgot about it. And Bill called me in the fall and said, hey, the bass are biting. We should do this trip that you bought. And I said, oh, great. Okay. So we set it up, and my brother-in-law and I went fishing with Bill, and you're in the boat all day. You start talking about things. And I was very familiar with the shows Ron was producing, or many of them, not all of them. And I started asking questions, and Bill was describing what was happening at the time and said, I think Ron might be looking to sell the company. And I kind of said, well, why? And he said, well, he's ready to just kind of tell stories and write and produce. I think he's a little bit tired of
managing Bill,
and the day-to-day that comes with that. And so I just called Ron, and one thing led to another. And I think it was about a year after that, I ended up buying the company. And now I'm kind of sick of the day-to-day and managing Travis. So no, just kidding.
Right. Well, did you ever think that you would be in front of the camera doing television? Because the last 3 years you've jumped in, and, Bill, Ron, myself, we've all kind of watched you in the field, and you've written your own scripts. So a lot of people think like we go out there and we already have it all laid out. Like, what do we do next? What do we do next? And I say, I don't know, man, let's go hunting. Like, I can't tell you what to do next.
Right.
We have to see what plays out here. It's all real. So after we get out of the field, that's where we go through sometimes 6-8 hours of footage or more even. And then we have to break it down into a 22 minutes of content, but we got to write a script for our editors. So you have been doing that.
I have, yes. And for those of you who have seen my shows, I apologize in advance. No, I never thought I'd be doing this part of the job. And I think it was a little bit out of necessity because The Flush is a difficult show to gather because of the time constraints of the upland bird hunting season.
Mm-hmm.
We really have from September till kind of the end of January to get 13 episodes of that show shot and produced. And for you as the main host, almost impossible for you to be on the road 13 weeks. And as I'm a bird hunter, and I have bird dogs, and I love to hunt, it kind of fell into my lap that I could do one or two.
Yeah, because I remember you first. You're like, hey. Because we sit and we have these big meetings. We throw around all the ideas for the season, and you're like, "Hey, guys, I think I can do one."
Well, I wanted to help out.
Yeah.
I'm a team player. I'm a team player, and the other thing for me as a business owner, it's important to me to be in the field and understand what everyone on our staff has to do when they're producing our shows. And we produce 7 different television shows at Ron Share Productions, and a lot of time, effort, and commitment goes into putting that television on the air. And to see what you do in the field, or Ron or Bill, and equally, if not more important, what our cameramen do in the field when they're, when we're out there, we're producing television, but we're hunting, and there's many times when we've filmed that I have walked 9 or 10 miles, like any type of hunt we might do. And then I look at the guys that are with us on those shoots carrying the gear, a camera that weighs between 10 and 20 pounds, and they're right there with us. And it's really impressive. It's really impressive.
It really, we're fortunate to be out there and interacting with the other hunters and stuff like that. But the work, I believe, is really done by the cameraman that are following our every move. I remember the last hunt that I did a couple weeks ago, and Jason Stussy was the cameraman, and we were on top of a mountain in Nevada, and I looked over at Jason and I'm like, dang, his feet were cut up. They were all blistered up from 3 days of hiking. We put on over 35 miles, and his phone app said that he had gone each day between 150 and 170 flights of stairs up.
Wow.
But that means we also took those same flights of stairs back down. It was just insane.
Which is almost harder going down.
It's harder going down. Yeah. Your lungs say it's harder going up, but your body says it's harder going down. I don't remember taking 3 steps over a 3-day period that were on flat ground at any point in a row. I mean, it was that jagged, and it's the experience for sure. But without him being there, none of it matters. So he had to be there, and he did the whole time. And I said, Jason, my goodness, you've followed me in 3 different boats. We've hunted on multiple islands this year. We took a plane ride to get to one of those islands. We've been on top of mountains. We've been in swamps. We've been in woods. We've been in grass. We've been in snow. We're in wind. I can barely see you right now because we're in the middle of a cloud.
And it's amazing they keep showing up for work.
And he comes back.
Yeah.
What a fool.
I know.
What a fool.
I know.
Anyway, I'm getting completely sidetracked here. So I'm going to bring it back in. So you own this company, but you have been a bird hunter your entire life.
Correct.
When did you start hunting?
Well, I got my gun safety, I think, when I was in 6th grade. So I think my first hunt was a duck hunt when I was in 7th grade.
So you've always been a bird hunter, right?
I've always been a bird hunter.
That's one thing is I like hunting a little bit of everything. I like deer hunting. I like birds. I like turkeys. I like pheasants. I like, all of the species, but you really focus on birds.
I do. I've done just a little bit of deer hunting. I love to eat venison. But as my kids are growing up, and you're probably realizing this a little bit yourself now, you only get so many kitchen passes.
Yeah.
So I chose the ones where I could be with my dogs in the field. And I do think I will start big game hunting more now that my daughters are a little bit older. And I do love turkey hunting too. So it's been pretty much fowl for me, but I'm a fowl guy, So
yeah, very. So what came first, your drive to go upland bird hunting, or the fact that you had a bird dog?
Hunting. We had dogs. I grew up with dogs and love my dogs. And my first dog was a dog I got for $5 from the dog pound. And she almost died within 10 days of having her. She was so malnourished. But we nursed her back to health.
When you say we, was this your parents? Or
this was my dog. I had $5 in my piggy bank.
How old were you back then?
I was 7. And she was my first dog. And she was part greyhound, part lab, we think, and part something else. And she could run like the dickens. But she was not a hunter, but she was just a great dog. And then we had a Springer that didn't hunt much at all, but we would drag her along. We figured out, we thought she was gun shy. She wasn't, but I don't know that she ever put up a bird. So I'm not certain. I tried to think about this as I figured you'd ask me this question because I heard what you asked, Ron. I don't know if I shot my first pheasant until I was in college, because that's when I had my first bird hunting dog. I shot ducks, and I actually liked probably duck hunting more because I didn't have a dog, and you could go retrieve your birds and still get them, and they wouldn't go away, and they'd come to you. It's, as anyone knows who's tried to hunt pheasants without a dog or upland without a dog, it's virtually impossible. You might kick one up here and there, but it was difficult. So I gravitated towards duck hunting more. And then I got a golden retriever when I was a junior in college, and he was my first hunting dog. And he was a good dog. He wasn't very well trained. He was just beautiful.
Neither was his owner.
No. We were a little bit of rebel together. And he it was by having Butch was his name.
Butch, nice.
I learned that I wanted to train my next dogs differently because I was tired of coming out of the field hoarse from yelling at him.
Have I ever told you my very first pheasant hunting story?
No.
Okay, so I've told this story at a few PF banquets, and basically, I was never in a position growing up where my parents would let me have a dog. So I hunted for everything that I could, but I did it without a dog. And so my neighbor, he goes, "Hey, do you want to go pheasant hunting?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. What do I need?" And he's like, "I don't know, just put an orange hat on and a vest." And I bought. When I was 12, I started my own lawn mowing business. So I had some money, and I bought a shotgun, an old 870 Remington pump, from a guy.
That was my first gun, by the way.
Yeah, I still have that gun, and I bought it from a guy that my uncle worked with, who was going through a tough time and a divorce. And so I don't know if technically it was a legal purchase by today's standards, but I bought this gun for $50. Anyway, so we go out there and we both show up to this piece of public ground. This is in central Minnesota. And his dog's name was Pepper. And we get out, we load the guns. We're like, where do we go? And I go, I don't know. I mean, pheasants live in grass, right? Let's try walking that way. And he goes, all right, hunt him up, Pep. Hunt him up. Pep, hunt him up. Pep, Pepper, Pepper. And then we spent really the next, sorry, Brandon. We spent the next 45 minutes trying to chase after the dog.
Pepper.
Yeah. We saw a few birds flush somewhere between like 500 and 700 yards out of range. That was Pepper. So we kind of knew like that's where the birds were. But that was my first real true pheasant hunting experience with a dog.
So mine's similar, except with Butch. That was a little bit before, well, I couldn't afford a shock collar and people were not using them as much then. And so rather than hunt grass where I knew it'd be difficult to keep them in range, we hunted a lot of sloughs.
Yeah.
And so we would get in the thickest, nastiest stuff and we'd put up birds and normally then he'd stay in range unless we kicked up a deer. And then he's gone.
Butch is gone.
Butch is gone. And sometime later he'd circle back to the car and I was there and I was so frustrated by then we'd usually go home.
Most people can relate to it. If it's not your bird dog, they have a buddy who has that dog and they right now they're saying, oh gosh, I can relate
I think
to
everybody's trained a dog at least once in their life has had that experience.
Yeah. So your dogs, as long as I've known you, have been like a lot of people's dogs, but not all of them. So I've hunted with a lot of different breeds, a lot of different bird hunters, and some of them are just like serious, dedicated. This is my gun dog. This is my bird dog. I don't want him in the house. I don't want him interacting with kids to mess up the things that I've trained him. But you have labs, and they're family dogs. Are they more family dog or more hunting dog?
Oh, gosh. That's a really good question. I guess it depends on when you would ask me that. Yeah. Realistically, they're far more family dogs. I mean, they spend 90% of their time at home with the family, and the other 10 to 20% hunting. So, for us, it's much more important that they're family dogs first, and that they like people. They're good with kids. Kids growing up, and I remember my wife when. I've always been a 2-dog guy that I have one in training as my other one gets older so that I will hunt. Because one time I had a dog that had blown out her knee and I never hunted the whole fall. I just wouldn't go out without my dog. And so I always want to have 2. And when I wanted to get the second one, I think when I got our dog Gus, we had my youngest was 2, my next oldest was 5, and then my oldest was 8. And Jean was like, no. And eventually we wore her down and became yes. So they're family pets. But I'm a firm believer they can be both. And I think you've hunted with my dogs enough that when they're in the field, they're kind of all business. They know the difference. They know they have I don't know if it's a switch or what, but they can go from being just kind of chill dog at home that knows what and when to do what to revved up and ready to hunt in the field.
Dogs are some of the most unbelievable creatures to me.
Yes.
In their ability to do, like you just said, like they just know instinctively, I'm hunting right now. And to me, it's always amazing where a dog from Minnesota could go to, let's say, Wyoming. Like when George Lyle and I went out to Wyoming and we hunted chukar, he's like, my dog has never smelt a chukar in its life. But we're 7,000 feet up on a mountainside and the dog was on point, and you're damn right. There's a covey of chukar that dog found. And we were like, how do they know?
I don't know.
And they ran by all the goldfinches and the meadowlarks and everything else. But all of a sudden, boom, there's a chukar or there's a Hungarian partridge. We don't have those here in Minnesota, but the dog knows.
Well, and we had that with my dogs last year. We were filming in Kansas and hunting all public areas. And One of them, we get a group of quail up, a covey of quail up, which is a trip for us Northerners.
Yeah.
And the dogs were acting birdie all along. We got pheasants up first, then this quail. We drop one, and Hank finds the quail. He knows that we're looking for something, and all of a sudden, here he comes back with a quail. He's never retrieved a quail. He was 2 years old, or almost 3. And then later in that same trip, he actually pointed a covey of quail. And it's all on camera. The only bad part is I missed, and then my gun jammed, and all that's on camera too. But Aaron, our chief photographer, is with me, and I said, "Aaron, Hank's birdie," and I go, he's pointing, and sure as you know what, up gets a group of covey. I shoot once, my gun jams, and then the 2 stragglers got up within 10 feet of us. So to your point, they learn how they know, or that's where, I guess I'd say it this way. That's where the breeding and the drive and the instincts of the animal take over. And I think that's so cool. That's the part, no matter how much training you put into them or how much time with that, is them. And that's a really neat element. And I do have labs. My first dog, as I said, was a golden retriever, and I switched to labs just because I got tired of combing burrs out of my retriever. But I truly love all dogs, and I've hunted with a wide variety of dogs. And just for my style hunting and how we hunt here in the Midwest, especially upland, a lot of sloughs, combo hunting, ducks. They're still good in the woods and stuff. Labs fit my style hunting to a T, but I could see having pointers if I was in the prairies more, or like you when you filmed in Wyoming, hunting chuckers, things like that. I think dogs are really cool.
Oh, every bird dog I meet is my new favorite dog.
I agree. Me too.
I mean, it's incredible. I
would have 10 if my wife would let me.
Well, so maybe that's going to happen now, because you've gone through some big transitions in your life in the last couple of years. You have 3 beautiful daughters, but you guys are now kind of living single life.
We're a little
again.
bit empty nesters now. They still circle back home when the refrigerator runs dry or they need a couple bucks for the gas tank. We'll see them. But yeah, we're exploring that. We're down to 1 dog. We lost a favorite last September, Izzy, who's in the show, and some of the people who've seen the show may know her, and she was a wonderful dog. So we're gonna try and do what's it called, a match, a love connection with Hank, and see if we can maybe find a little black lab female that we can connect Hank with, and I'd love to have another puppy.
Yeah. Do you have a time frame on that?
The sooner the better. Because it's for anybody getting a puppy. I just think it's easy to have them in the spring and summer and
some time
house break them and train them and whatnot when it's not super cold. And then if it's early enough, then they are able to do some hunting in the fall. Go out.
I was fortunate to hunt behind Izzy, and one thing that always stood out was the excitement that dog had when we got to the field. There wasn't a pheasant in the county that didn't know that we were going hunting that morning. That's
right. Izzy let everybody know she was there.
What was it like when you had to say goodbye?
Oh, it's anybody listening to this who's A, had a dog, but B, have a bird dog. It's the worst. I don't think you can really explain it until you go through it. And anytime you have to say goodbye to a loved one, it's super difficult. In the case of a pet, and you have to play a role in the decision, it makes it doubly as hard. And she was 11, but she was a young 11. She would have hunted another 2 or 3 years easily. And for Izzy, she was a part of our family for 11 years. So my youngest daughter, Hannah, was 7 when we got Izzy, and all of the girls grew up with her. And they adore their dogs and adored Izzy. And she had so many unique characteristics around the house that made the family adore her. And then the girls in particular got to hunt with her, and they got to see again what I call that switch go off on her, and the vocalness before you hunt, and then just down to business once you are in the field walking. And she was all business, and it was important for me to have the girls see that, to let them see that this dog that they cuddle with, they sleep with, they baby, that it's kind of a machine in the field, in a different animal, and the teamwork between Izzy and myself.
They must, when they see that, there must be something that clicks for them to say, like, our dog's kind of a badass.
They do. I think they get a sense of pride, and it's hard for those that haven't been hunting, and you try and tell them what your dog does in the field. They don't fully understand until they actually see it. I've had a couple of friends recently that have gotten back into hunting. They don't have dogs, but they've joined us in the field, and college buddies, and same thing. Kids are gone, so now they're reconnecting with some things they want to get back doing. And one of my friends said that she goes, I can't tell you how much fun it is watching the dogs hunt. And this was with Hank, and he said, I love watching Hank hunt. And we would split up, and he'd always come with Hank. He wanted to be with Hank. And I watched him learn to read Hank, which was super interesting and fun on my part. So when Hank would get birdie, I would see, Tom was his name, get ready. He'd change his gait. His gun would go under the, up in the ready position. He was ready for a bird to get up. And to watch this guy who hasn't hunted much in the last 15, 20 years kind of reconnect with his instincts and channel the instincts of what the dog was doing was really a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's amazing how that the dog can change a person. And we actually have some stories coming up that we've been working on, and we'll definitely be touching on them here. We'll have some guests on, but essentially one guy in particular, he was an anti-hunter his whole life, and a bird dog changed him. And now he's one of the biggest advocates for hunting in the Midwest here. So there's so many great stories revolving around the bird dog. One last question on Izzy. Do you think because you've incorporated your bird dogs into the family so much, was it harder on your kids than it was on you when you guys had to say goodbye, being that that's something for your kids that have never had to experience?
I don't know, Travis. I think we were all in love with that dog, so I can't say that it was harder. I think it affected us all greatly. And what I'll say, for Izzy, Maddie and Hannah were off at college, so we had to call them after we had to put her down. But when her dad passed away, they wanted to come with. They wanted to be there when we said goodbye to Gus, which I was very impressed with.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do that, and that's hard. But that's where the love and connection was, that they didn't want to just leave it to mom and dad to go do the hard stuff.
Yeah. One thing that we've done at this company, and Ron has done it too, is he's involved his family, and you followed suit there too. And that moment that you shared with your daughters out in the field spreading Gus's ashes still resonates with a lot of our viewers, because we filmed that was one of your first episodes of The Flush. And everybody that's hunted can relate to what you went through there. So it's real. And that's one thing that I think has been really enjoyable for me in watching the shows that you've produced, is you've incorporated those real elements. And I want to talk about one of the episodes specifically. We've been really getting in depth into your life story, which I'm interested in. Hopefully,
I'm sure everybody else is too.
Hopefully you're still with us here. But you being an empty nester now, you went through this, but your dog, in a roundabout way, has brought your wife into the field with you this year.
He has, and I would say not only my wife, but my kids. But yes, we say goodbye to Izzy this year. In somewhat of a similar way, but a little bit differently than we did with Gus. And my wife Jean came with me, and she had never seen the dogs hunt pheasants. She'd we'd walk the woods for grouse, and that's a different hunt, especially with flushers. It can be a much different hunt. And she had never walked big grass or sloughs.
You took her to North Dakota.
I took her to North Dakota, and I hunted all the areas and memories that I have in this area around Oaks, North Dakota. And we do a lot of public land hunting and plots land hunting and things like that. And so it was very eye-opening for her to see the amount of exertion you put in, bushwhacking as she calls it, but walking sloughs, to watch Hank just and do his thing. And it was, for those people that maybe hunted in the Dakotas this year, it was a wet year, really wet. And we were slogging through water.
You made her go through the cattails, right?
I made her go through. I did.
As any good husband would do.
On the edge. I went first. No, she walked the edge, but she particularly saw Hank, and Hank hunted really well this particular trip. And, he was in the water. We could hear him sloshing around, and then birds roosters getting up. He did a water retrieve, and she had never seen that with the dogs before. And so that was kind of neat. And for the girls, they've done it. And Jean said this, and then we talked about it later after the hunt with the whole family. She said, that was fun. I would do that again. She doesn't want to necessarily carry a gun, but she really enjoyed watching the dogs and loved. We were there peak migration for the snow geese, and there were snow geese all over, and she loved that part. Looking up in the sky, hearing the geese. You could, you've been up there. You can hear geese all the time at certain times of the year, and that we were there during the peak. And the girls the same way. I think I wouldn't be surprised eventually, and I've been working on them real slowly. Is if one or two of them actually carry a gun and want a bird hunt. Yeah.
I believe it'll happen just from watching.
I get my fingers crossed.
I think it'll happen. Okay. So this is obviously, this story has a lot of layers to it that will be unfolding on an upcoming episode of The Flush. But currently, so how our show is in the broadcast season right now. So the Flush episodes, they air on the Outdoor Channel, and they run over a 6-month window from July through the end of December.
During the hunting season.
Yeah. It kind of gets us excited for hunting season. And then, if you can't make it out on Saturday morning, you've got a Flush episode to watch. But now that it's off the air for 6 months, we are posting an episode on our YouTube channel every week. A new show goes up, and they'll also be added to our Amazon channel as well. So there are multiple places for people to stream the show, and streaming has obviously become a very popular way to watch media as well. So we're glad that we can provide different options for viewers. And one of the last episode that you produced that just went up is about a very special father, son, and their bird dog. Tell me a little bit about Brian, Hayden, and Pele.
Well, that was a great story and a lot of fun to film. And I'll back up and say, as an amateur producer in a very amateurish show host, that it's
give yourself a little bit more credit.
For me, I like trying to tell stories about dogs and dogs and their owners, and because it's just a common thread, I guess I feel like I have with the people in the field and their dogs. And when we were brainstorming episode ideas, you and I discussed potentially having a little contest where we invited viewers to submit why their bird dog might be a good story with the Flush. And we really got a lot of submissions.
Yeah, we got flooded actually.
We did. And I think we should do that again. It's really fun to see those stories.
Yeah, I would say it was less of a contest and more of a tell us your story.
Tell us your story
thing.
Because we wanted to chronicle it. Yes, you're right. And Brian's and Hayden's and Pele was one that really resonated with us. And it's not necessarily because Pele was this phenomenal hunting dog, which she is a really quite a good hunting dog. And she's a golden doodle, and I've never hunted with a doodle before. So I was quite impressed with her hunting lineage and her ability as we hunted with her, but she's a therapy dog. and has this special connection with Hayden, who has some anxiety issues and ADHD.
Yeah.
And Paley has this unique ability to calm him down and to be there for him when he's maybe getting anxious or things aren't happening the way he wants them to. And we saw that in the field. We didn't really see him get anxious, but we saw that bond with them and how attached he was to her. And then she got to show her stuff as a hunter, which she did very, very well.
Yeah, it was a special story, and I was fortunate because I happened to be driving through South Dakota at the time you were filming, so I got to spend a day with all three of you, or all four of you, and just that the love, obviously, for the dad and his son, and then their dog, and it just brings... It just gives a bigger picture to life. I mean, what we all love to do, if you're listening to the show, you probably love upland bird hunting, so you can relate to the dogs. But just your story matters, just like Brian's and Pele's and anybody else listening right now. I mean, it's amazing to me that anybody that's hunted, you start talking to them. You just ask them questions, and they'll start telling you a story.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that was really neat about this particular show and when we filmed it, and I do believe this happens a lot in the field, and you can attest to this, is something else comes up or another layer, let's call it, of the story reveals itself. And that, in this particular episode, happened and is when first Hayden shot his shotgun. The first time he shot the shotgun.
That's right, yep.
And we put a clay pigeon on a box, and he was very nervous, you could see, but he overcame his fear, and his dad talked about that on the show, and then he hit the pigeon. And he was so excited, and it was just a big deal for him. And we were able to capture barely on the mics because this is at the end of the day. And I'm going to step back and say, too, this is at the end of the day after I know for a fact I walked 10 miles that day. And little Hayden probably takes 3 times as many steps as I do in the
3
field.
3 deer 1, yeah.
So God knows how many steps or miles he walked, 15, 20, and he was a trooper the whole way through, and his dad was just checking in on him and say, how you doing? It was the last walk of the day, and there were birds kind of popping up all over. You were there, it was a golden hour, and Hayden's like, I'm doing okay, I'm a little tired, and then he says, hey, if we get back before it's dark, Travis and I are going to try shooting the gun again. Is that okay, Dad? And I could just see the smile on Brian's face. You bet, buddy. and it's, I think, for any father, whether it's a son or daughter, to have them say, I want to do this again in something that you love is like bingo. And it wouldn't surprise me if Hayden did his hunter safety stuff this year because he wants to go hunting now.
Right. He's never spent a day in a pheasant field like that.
No.
In South Dakota, he got to experience these birds getting up, watching his best friend, that dog, and being with his dad. I mean, it brought it all full circle. I think it's why we truly do what we do here.
I agree.
So it's a special story. There's a lot of funny moments with that kid. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out on our YouTube channel. If you just go to YouTube, you can just search The Flush TV. You'll find it. If you want to head online to theflush.tv, that would be our website. You can get connected to all of our social channels on there as well. You can watch that show, and we hope you enjoy it. And Scott, I appreciate you taking the time today.
Well, thank you.
Giving me this opportunity to have another way to talk about something I love so much, which is hunting in the outdoors.
Me too.
So we're going to hopefully continue this. There's no end date to what we've started here, which is a great thing. So,
for me, there is, Travis. Yeah, this is enough.
We'll talk later. We'll talk off the air. So anyway, we will be back next week with another episode of the Flush Podcast.